we have to become self-aware. As we move further and further into New Earth, we can't ignore it anymore. And my eyes are wide open. I can no longer run from my core operating system or reasons that I shut down, maybe to real love, to things that are good for me, the things that make me feel good. To not force myself to live in some sort of survival or suffering way because of some unknown mysterious reason. I can't shut down anymore. You can't shut down anymore. We have to face our truth. And as humans, I believe that we have a spiritual contract. And I believe that we create the parameters, the topics, all the things that we experience here on Earth. We create that template before we come here. We create potentials that either play out or don't play out. We make agreements with other souls, that incarnate as humans for other reasons and choice points, portals and nodes and different templates in our life. And this is acting out in millions of timelines. Every choice point or choice not taken, another timeline. And since 2012, we've been collapsing these timelines. And we can remember some of them, which many call the Mandela effect. And we know for sure that we've seen other realities. For myself personally, I've hit a block where I can no longer ignore my childhood operating system, my root trauma that defined what it is that I allow into my heart or allowing good things into my life. And the last couple of months, I've been looking at some videos about narcissism. And in believing that I chose my reality and that I chose to have experiences here on Mother Earth, I always believed that once I became an adult, it didn't matter what happened to me as a child, it was mine to deal with. It was mine to heal the trigger, heal the trauma. It was mine to, find whatever mental health or spiritual healers or gurus or body healers or whatever was given to me, mentally, physically, emotionally, as a child, that it was my job to transform that. And when I was a teenager, I had long-term relationships starting at 16. I had a 6-year relationship, then I had an 8-year relationship, and then I had a 16-year relationship. So, but in my beginning, my first relationship, I realized that in order for me to feel loved, I had to have some sort of domestic violence, meaning my parents fought all the time. And this video is going to be about my mom in that. And in my first relationship, if there wasn't some sort of fighting that led to something physical, pushing each other against the wall or whatever. I had an ex that choked me up against the wall until I could hardly breathe. That was love. Because in my home, if they weren't fighting, there wasn't love. And after there was a big battle of love, of fighting, then they would make up. And then, which would either lead to whatever they did. The kids aren't supposed to know about, stuff like that. But the fits my mom would throw and all the stuff she'd break and all their fights, I would clean up their mess of their fights and everything they broke. Well, they went in the bedroom and made up. And then the cycle repeated. And so if there wasn't some sort of fiery fight and physical altercation, there wasn't love. I recognized that in my first relationship. And I went, well, this is not what I want. I also recognize that when you tear somebody down, there's a huge high in bringing them up and making them okay again. And I was like, that's not what I want. And I dove into healing that. And I dove into feeling when the anger would rise in me, when the feeling would rise, how I would feel it in my body. You know, I'd like feel it come up through my feet, or, you know, whatever would happen to mellow that out. And in my second relationship, I didn't have that, which I'm not going to talk about all those dynamics. It's interesting because later I look back, in my first relationship, I was the femme. In my second relationship, I was the butch. And in my third relationship, I did have domestic violence and different abuse stuff that we'll talk about probably in another video. But and that was, I was the femme in that relationship too. Let's just say it as that. I wasn't the dominant one. I didn't have the money. I didn't have the I didn't have that in my second one either. I wasn't, you know, and my first relationship, she was 12 years older than me. My second, she was 16 years older than me. My third, she was 12 years older than me. They were always the authority figure. They were always this. So what's the issue? What's the common theme? What are my mommy issues, right? It's a therapist cliche. Blame your mother. Okay. I'm good for that. I'm good for blaming my mother. But like I was saying earlier, I believe that once we become an adult, we're responsible for those things ourselves. Okay. But just because I own it and it's mine and I know I have to deal with it, doesn't mean that I still want my mother in my life. So when I became an adult and my mother never changed. So the way she was with me as a child and the verbal and mental and emotional abuse she put on me, she never changed. She became a Jehovah's Witness and put it all under the rug, put it in the vault, apologized at one point. Oh, everything I did, but she never changed her behavior. And so it just went on. And I was an only child. It turns out I had other siblings, but I was my mother's only child. So all of her emotional stuff she put on me. And I felt like because I was her only child, I was responsible for her. Not in childhood. We'll talk about that in a minute. But in adulthood, I just kept thinking no matter what she's got going on or whatever, I'm responsible for her health, you know, for helping her financially, for, you know, even when I'm living in a car. My dad had died during that time, and I turned over electric credits or different things to her to make sure she's taken care of. And I always just kind of had this maybe guilt, shame, this inward thing to keep her alive. I'm responsible for her somehow. And I'm 54 this year. I went no contact with my mom 4.5 years ago. So right around my 50th birthday. And she was right around her 70th birthday. And I had moved away from her like 12, 13 years ago, which really freed up my life because I could live my house how I wanted. Yeah, I was a grown up. I had my house the way I wanted, you'd think. But my mom would go out and service the Jehovah's Witness stuff. And she'd pop in sometimes. And I'd get, you know, the look and the mom thing and just that guilt and trauma it would bring up in me if she disapproved of my Buddhist statue or my metaphysical things, right? Or me being a lesbian, right? And everybody that's at my house is a lesbian and all of the cliches. And so I lived my life for my mom, even though I didn't. You know, I was still lesbian, still metaphysical, but still scared of what she could do to me emotionally. Kind of irrational, but it's my operating system, right? So in learning what love is and the domestic violence stuff, and that I worked through that. But what I never faced is what is my operating system of love. So not necessarily relationships and how relationships should look, but what is love to me, right? Now, I was raised by my stepfather. I didn't know he was my stepfather until I was like 10 years old or whatever. But my mother, so I wasn't his biological kid, you know, and that kind of was an undertone. And so my mother put everything on to me. And how she treated me and the emotional stuff she put on me is how I let love in or don't let love in. And I was shut down to my mom at a very young age. I didn't really know why. Like she'd sometimes go, oh, and she'd touch my hair and I would just be grossed out. And her friends, people would recognize it. Like I didn't want her touching me. I didn't like her. But I was indebted to her. I was her keeper. And so I'm going to tell you about my mom, because in studying this stuff, like I said, the narcissism stuff, I've seen on and off for decades. And I've examined my own traits that might, have fallen into narcissism, and what I'm doing in the relationship, what I'm bringing. I've always strived to be the best version of me that I can whenever I see something and remove a trigger and a trauma. But this one, I haven't looked directly at, because it wasn't something that I was doing that was hurting other people. So I was working on different things to bring money into my life, bring peace of mind, my dynamics with the world or whatever. Okay. But this particular issue is what I do to myself, how I love myself, whether I let someone else love myself. If someone is kind to me and stands by me and is loving to me for a decade, that I don't view that as love. Right? But if someone's fiery and pulls me in and out and, has this other stuff with me, I'm in love. Something wrong with that. Something's wrong when I accept something abusive or something that isn't happy or feels good, and I call that love. Whereas the person that's loyal to me in every single way and supports me in every single way, I don't feel love. So I'm directly facing that. And it is a therapist cliche of blame your mom. I didn't blame my mom because it's mine now. But I did also cut her out of my life, and it took a long time. Like I said, it's only been 4.5 years now. And I'm fine with it. My mom died to me long ago. She became a Jehovah's Witness, I think, in 1996. She didn't approve of my lifestyle. She doesn't approve of anything about me, right? And it doesn't matter that I don't approve of her either. I never really understood her coldness. I never really understood so much about her. And in the last couple months, examining just kind of came to me information about narcissism and being open to that, and where in my relationships I've had that. In my 3 long-term relationships, where I had that. In my 4th long-term relationship, I haven't had it at all, except for the aspects that I brought to it that I've healed. So, but in dating people in between all of that, I have displayed those aspects of myself, and I've ignored those aspects in others. And I've done it short term. I haven't lived with anybody in over 10 years. And also looking at where some of my long-term relationships had that and what that did to me. So I'm going to burn some sage and do a little prayer here, and then I'm going to tell you about my mother and my childhood. My mother is still alive, and I don't care if she sees this or not. She's not in my world, and she never will be. It's not about forgiving her. It's about not even so much as self-preservation, but I don't like her. I don't prefer her in my reality. I'm not going to placate her. I have mental abuse, fight or flight, PTSD from the domestic violence, from her abuse. That was triggered within the last few years by, a mob incident to flare up different things, which is a story for, I'm sure you've seen. So looking at the root of this and going, well, was my mom a narcissist? Well, in everything that I've studied and looking at, yes. And so what, understanding her operating system. So understanding that, yeah, she was abused. She was abused in every way. Okay, I get it. You can have compassion for them. The abusers abuse, they say. Narcissists become narcissists. Whatever is the whole, when you're a only child of a mother that's a narcissist, you carry in that, always wanting to please them, always scared that you're going to get in trouble, always afraid that somebody's going to get mad at you, and especially women. And so you go, okay, well, if you got these mommy issues and your mom was a narcissist and your mom was abusive in these other ways that have been revealed to me, then it stands to reason that as a lesbian, I'm going to project some of that in my relationships. And so, and how I think I've mostly projected it is just not let myself be loved, not feel love, not have fun. Just go through the motions of, oh yes, I'm in love, or, go through the motions of what sexuality and a relationship and all this is supposed to be, and making sure my partner's okay, and then going to do whatever I want, and then my partner just buying me off all the time. Oh, you're gonna leave? Oh, you don't like the way I'm treating you? Here's some money, here's some stuff, here's some love. Oh, I'm never gonna hug you, I'm never gonna kiss you, never gonna pat your ass or go do anything with you or watch a movie with you or any of that. But when you get upset about it, because I know you're not gonna leave, because where are you gonna go? Because I didn't know I could live in a car. So then they withhold that, and then when I decide to stand up for myself and I'm going to leave, I'll get a hug and I'll get a kiss, and it'll feel good, and then I'll get something bought for me, a new car or whatever, and I'll be like, okay, I guess you do love me. She didn't, and they can't. So anyway, I call in all available angels. I call in my higher guide, the higher guide of my ancestors, all available entities of the highest vibration, Mother, Father, God. Call in the violet flame to burn away all of the old. Archangel Michael, Archangel Gabriel, Goddess, Brother Jesus, and the Christ consciousness. I want to dissolve this at the root. I have said that, and I feel like I've worked on it for decades. But in this moment, I feel like Spirit's telling me that I haven't faced it head on and admitted what my mother did to me, to set it free in myself and to help others. And I don't know where I wrote it down, but I was watching this really amazing woman on TikTok. I don't watch lives. I just stumbled on it, and she is a narcissist, and the way she explained things, I mean, I just really got it, right? Because you spend your whole life believing it's you, that you're the problem, and that you have to please every stranger that wants something from you in whatever way. Or that, if some woman wants to date you, that you got to date her, and then you got to give her everything she wants, and you got no choice in the world. And all of the emotional pain that comes from that. I don't even remember what I was saying. Anyway, I didn't even finish my prayer. So Spirit's here. We're going to cleanse the air here. And then we're going to talk about my mom. I guess we can. So I grew up in Rexford, Montana. Tiny little town. And my mom and I were together all the time. My dad worked, I don't know if you've seen on some of my stuff out there, powder monkey, right? So he would blow up the rock and they would build the roads for logging, And so I used to compare my anti-corruption stuff to that, right? I just blow up the rock and then other people can, build the road. And so I was alone with my mom a lot, and obviously especially in the summertime. And so I think I'm going to jump around the stories here, but I'm cleansing all the energy, and my intention is to heal you and anything in your line as well as mine, your family line, your lineage, anywhere that you've had someone that's verbally or emotionally or physically, sexually abused you in any way. And I cleanse all that, and I ask that Spirit assist us to cleanse all that. Amen. So in the summertime, I would spend most of my days down at Lake Koocanusa, 90 Mile Lake, with my motorcycle, by myself. I had my food. I cooked, deer meat over an open fire, and I just did my own thing, all by myself. Sometimes I'd invite other kids, but if they didn't want to play what I wanted to play, I didn't play. Sometimes my mom would want to go to the beach. Now, my mom would lose things all the time. That's a whole nother story of a Mandela effect or whatever. And so she'd throw a fit. I get ready to go swimming. I got the inner tube in the car. I'm all ready. And she's lost her watch. She can't find her this. She can't find her that. So I got to find it. If I don't find it, we don't go. We don't get to go do that fun thing if I don't find what my mother lost. And she has a meltdown. Screaming, raging meltdown. Every time she'd lose her watch or lose something. And I'd have to find it to make her okay. Sometimes my mother would sunbathe in the yard. And I remember, she used to say this a lot, but one particular time I remember pretty well. And she'd wear, a halter top and shorts, it's we're looking at like 1977 here, 70s, 80s. I'm Gen Xer, I was born in 1970. So I just remember just being like all happy and sunny out and it's beautiful. And I'd go over to my mom and, I don't know, bring her something probably that she wanted or something. And, you know, a tab, the drink, the tab, or some sort of sunscreen or something. I think she had me put sunscreen on her. I don't know. But she would look at me and tell me, even though this guy, and knowing this guy's my stepdad, like at this time I didn't even know, you and your father, she'd be like, you and your dad would be better off if I was dead. So I only have my mom, right? And so I love her. I think I love her. And so I made it my mission, right, to make sure she's happy, to keep her alive, right? We couldn't fucking keep her happy because she'd have fits all the time, right? My dad, of course, was a dick, and he'd push her, you know, he'd just say stupid things. And she'd throw raging fits, and she would break things. She'd throw knives at picture frames, and she'd throw pans, and she'd just throw stuff all over the house. And sometimes she'd throw things at him, and it hit him, and he'd just still sit there and watch the TV. And they just, you know, had their battles. And sometimes she'd get on his back and just, you know, just beat him, like, you know. And he'd never really hit her back. It was years into, well, I don't know, I guess their marriage, but obviously, but I mean, they got married when I was 2, but at some point in it, he started becoming physically violent too, but not with her. He would break things. Okay. And so it is. So he would like smash the whole gun cabinet once, I remembered, smashed it down, and they'd throw their big fits and fights, and then everything would be broke, and then they go in the bedroom and make up or whatever they do, you know. And then I would pick up all the broken glass and all of the broken things and the cigarette ashes and whatever flung around the whole entire house. That's what I would do. My aunt, when I became an adult, one of my aunts told me that she used to come over and our trailer house, and she'd see me outside just hunkered down like this behind the trailer, just crying and just, you know, waiting for it to be over there. And they would be inside just screaming, fighting, and God knows what, breaking stuff. When I was in high school, so I moved out when I was 17, but I'm kind of jumping around in the stories, but I've now learned that my mother is a full-on narcissist. I mean, unbelievable. And some of the notes and stuff, I'll talk to you more about the reasons I believe that, or some of the characteristics of a narcissist, and, you know, their abuse and how they're shut down and they can't feel, and they just, you know, you be crying and they'll be like, I'll give you something to cry about. I tell my mom her screaming at me was hurting my ears. Then she'd scream way louder and say, this is screaming, you know, or I'll give you something to cry about, you know. And she didn't necessarily physically abuse me. Sometimes things might hit me when she's flying around in her tirade, but it was emotional abuse, you know, 24/7, except for when I was on my motorcycle down on the 90-mile lake all by myself. And so I was a therapist really at a young age. And I would go around to all the different women in the trailer park, or the town there. It wasn't really a trailer park, it was a town. Rexford, New Rexford. If you know, you know. Because it was in Old Rexford. And I would counsel the married ladies about their husbands. And I was psychic too as a child. So, you know, and they'd forget like I was a kid and we're just talking about all this stuff. And then it'd be like, wait, And so, anyway, fast forward back when I was 16, I moved out when I was 17. And in with my first girlfriend, who, looking back in my analyzing all this stuff at this point in my life, was like a psycho. But she was cute, and it was my first experiences at lesbian intimacy, and she was definitely, yeah. So, and looking back, she was kind of messed up with me as well. And she was a Scorpio. So was my mom, and her and my mom would fight like hell. My mom was 20 years older than me. My first relationship, my my first lesbian experience and lesbian was a long-term relationship. You hauling, right? I was, like I said, I was 16. I met her when I was 15. I started dating her when I was 16 and she was 24. And she drove a forklift and worked where my dad worked. And her and my mom would just fight all the time. Like, she'd come over and we'd have board games or whatever. And my mom hated to lose and my girlfriend hated to lose. And they'd both just fucking throw fits. My mom, when she would lose a game. Now, this was when I was 16. Interesting, two different numbers here, but I was in Montana last 2016. I tried again over there. I played a game with my mom and her sister. Her sister was in town visiting. And if you don't let her win, she loses her mind. If you're playing like 5 games, she wins 1, you win 1. If she doesn't lose, so she's still to this day, she can't lose. And so she'd lose and she'd flip over the board game and she'd rip up the cards. And, I mean, like, she's the one that's gotta win. All of these things just narcissistic like crazy. So anyway, I was on a softball league because, you know, I'm a cliche. I'm a lesbian cliche. We didn't have softball in high school, but there was a women's team. And so they kind of recruited me and I was really good. And I'd be out in center field and I'd take, you know, they'd put an old dud woman here and an old dud woman here. And I'd just fly around the whole field and in that, of course, you know, then, I was young and cute and my, girlfriend used me like a puppy to attract other women. So she'd take me to these functions and stuff so she could draw in other women to hit on. Anyway, so I met this woman that was 16 years older than me. And there was this big thing back then where if you play if you play fast pitch softball, you shouldn't play slow pitch fastball. It was a physical thing, like a hurting. There was different injuries that could happen. And I forget the whole thing, but there was a softball tournament in a town a couple hours away of slow pitch. I was a pitcher and I pitched fast pitch. And so I went and I played, you know, I think center field or whatever. And then this isn't the story. The story is that my friend came to pick me up. He's 16 years older than me. Never met my mother. My mother's 20 years older than me. So, you know, close in age. And that was the first time she met my mom. And later we ended up being in a long-term relationship, like 8 or 9 years. And I have known her most of my life up until I went no contact with her in 2020 as well. Because I'm fucking done. I mean, you know. Give me 40 years, I'm like done. Anyway, so my friend walks in. My dad's sitting in the living room just watching the TV. My mom is in the kitchen throwing a fit, right? So pans are hitting the wall, glasses are hitting the wall, you know, just this huge fit because she's mad at my dad. And, you know, so, and it's weird for her because she's not used to it. For me, I'm just getting ready to go because it's the usual, right? And so that kind of becomes your background, chaos and fight or flight, and something's always going to hit and someone's always going to, you know, do something. And, I used to think my mom and I were close because, you know, it wasn't real. It was a narcissistic closeness of, you know, make her okay. And like I said, I think in the next video, I'll talk about the narcissistic traits that go along with this. But this is just kind of just telling myself and telling you like who she was and how that operating system has made it so that I don't let love in. Even though it might seem like, oh yeah, this is great. Well, I'm not feeling it. Like I wasn't feeling it. I thought, oh, I'm in love with this person or I'm in love with that person. But what does that mean? And I, you know, would live with someone for years and I would, feel like, well, shut down. Like, well, you know, the feeling that I knew to be in love wasn't necessarily that. And we weren't connected emotionally, physically, like spiritually. We lost that like after the first year. I stayed in situations like I was locked in or something, that I wasn't being loved or paid attention to or touched or heard, and I just stayed there. And every time she'd buy me something else or, say, oh, it's not always going to be this way, I would always just believe it. And mostly because probably I didn't know I had anywhere to go. Right? And so I thought my mom and I were close. So that was the delusion that I was in. And when I was 15, looking back, I came out as a lesbian to my high school counselor. And my high school counselor called and told my mother. I know nowadays there's a big thing of, do your parents need to know and all that? Well, I think they do when you're doing surgery and when you're, if you're getting into contracts and stuff like that. But, I was 16, maybe even 17 then. And anyway, so my mom, or is that what happened? I think my counselor told my mom, but I also know my mom's sister did. So I told my mom's sister one day that I was a lesbian, and she said, if I hadn't met my husband when I did, I would have been a lesbian. And I think something about the same thing with my mom, even though my mom was, my mom was sexually abused and she was highly sexual. She was sexually active starting at the age of 12. And anyway, so my aunt, that was it. My aunt told my mom, and then my mom pulled me out of school, like I was a terrorist or something. I don't know why I use that as an example, but like I'd done something really bad. She, I think, then spoke to the counselor and had me come home for lunch, and then she confronted me. If I was if I was a lesbian and if I was with so-and-so or whatever. I think I denied being with the woman I was with. She didn't find that out until I was with the next woman, because it's none of her fucking business after she shut down and she had an opinion, every other word is the F word. Everything in my life was always sexualized, always sexual jokes. Everything is always, fighting and sexual and cussing. And now all of a sudden, there's this great sin in the world because, and she became a Jehovah's Witness later. She wasn't a churchgoer. She wasn't, none of that. But I was all of a sudden the big bad girl because I had done something, bad and underhanded because I was a lesbian. And so at that point in time, my mom and I lost our friendship. I no longer trusted her. In looking back, I never liked her. But I no longer let her be in any of my confidences. Like I didn't share anything about my girlfriends or my life because why would I? And but I still took care of her. I still made sure she was okay emotionally. Once I got a real estate company, I made sure she was okay financially. Once we became millionaires, we bought her washer and dryers, put $70,000 into her teeth, $80,000 into natural cancer cures, just everything to take care of her emotionally, financially, and I felt. I'd have friends ask me, well, why? And I'm like, well, I'm an only child. And they're like, well, but she treats the way she treats you. And I'm like, well, yeah, but see, she tells everybody else that that's the way I treat her because I'm just like her dad. And she's just like her dad. Like she's all these bad things about me, right? Narcissists putting it on me. And so she put her own expectations, her own, we had to have dinner on the table every night at 5 for my dad because when he'd get home from work. And she was like a traditional housewife in a way, but then her fits were you never knew, right? So you never knew what was going to set her off. Never knew when she was going to start violently throwing things or screaming. And every morning, I'd wake up and it's fight or flight, right? Because I don't know whether I'm going to have to find something that she's been missing, or if I'm going to have to pick her up emotionally so she doesn't kill herself, or, what the day's going to entail. Was never about me getting up and going, oh, well, what do I want to do today? Oh my gosh, it's a new day. It'd be fun. I could read in my book. I could go down to the lake. No, it was always got to make my mom okay. And then I can go do what I want to do. And I later then did that in relationships, for decades. Make sure that my relationship's okay. You're okay. Everything's good with you. I've made you dinner. You know, I've done the whatever chores I need to do. I've got, you know, you're fine. Okay, then I can go. Instead of just breaking up with the people, being single and doing what I wanted, right? And because I wasn't getting anything out of the relationship. Oh, I got housing and I got stuff bought for me. Well, I don't have that stuff now. It all got taken, right? It all, and I wasn't, we didn't have gay marriage, right? I didn't have any rights when I finally did leave. And when I did leave and realizing that I could live in a car, which came later after, you know, my big free speech case and stuff, I didn't know. I didn't know I could live without her. I had no credit. I had no rights. I made money, and I made us a millionaire because, you know, I found the ranch that we bought for like $300,000 and sold for near $2 million. But I was never in control of my own life. My name was never on any property. I was never valued as an equal partner, which is another thing that was really important about same-sex marriage, right? And she'd always put me down, like, for my writing. Oh, you're a writer. Oh, you're, and then I would cry about things and she would be cold. Oh, we switched into my relationship. She would just be cold to me, and she'd be like, you know, like, why are you crying? Like, why is that bothering you? Like she had just no feeling for it and callous. And when I was like on my 30th birthday, for example, I was kind of bummed that she didn't plan anything or want to do anything or get me anything or even say happy fucking birthday. And I was bummed about it. And so she's like, right. And I'm just a hillbilly mountain girl. Like, I just like to, you know, go have hot chocolate up in the woods, go sit down by the creek, you know, go to a movie, go do anything. I didn't need anything financial. I was never that. I didn't get together with her for money. I got together with her because of her spiritual stuff or whatever, right? So anyway, so I'm bummed. It's my 30th. And she reacts to my grief by leaving for the day. So she was gone for like 5 hours and goes and gets me presents. So she bought me a computer. She bought me a bunch of stuff. And she's like, is this what you want? Well, it was. So I did. And then, you know, she just like not hug me like months and months, not even touch me at all. And then I would just start to get down, and then she'd just hug me or just give me a kiss, but mostly just keep away, but still want to stay with me. And very, very controlling and monogamous, but I wasn't free. And I didn't know I could be free because of my operating system that I already had, you know, with the way that I grew up. Now, I know that I was sexually molested. Everybody in my family was sexually molested. I've had people tell me that, you know, they don't, like, everybody's been sexually molested, or they know somebody that has. And I couldn't remember a lot of it. In my, I remembered my uncle that had molested his children and trying to tell adults about it that didn't listen. And I remember when I grew up and I was telling my mom about it, that she acted like her and her sister knew. And her sister had also been molested by the same guy, which was her older brother. And so they all knew, and they all just kind of was quiet about it. And then this other, her other sister's husband, I had a vision or recall or memory of him molesting me. And I described this room and this mirror on the ceiling and all this place I was at. And at that point, I was, like maybe I was like 33. And I had just moved out from my ex. I moved back in with her, but I was, you know, taking a break from whatever the hell I was doing. And I called my mom and I told her about that memory. And so about my uncle, okay? So then my aunt and uncle in that relationship had several children. So say one of them, say her name is Sarah and Ann. That's not their real names. But so I'm telling my mom about what I'm remembering about me, her only child. And she's like, oh my God, I wonder if he did it to Sarah and Ann too. And went off in this worry about these other two people. Didn't even acknowledge me talking about remembering of sexual abuse. Didn't even acknowledge it. I remember one time we were driving, my mom and I were driving to Oregon, and my dad's parents' house. It was in the Portland area in Gresham. And I said something to my mom. I was just laughing and saying something about some car passing. And she goes, what? What did you say? What did you remember? And I said, no, I was saying that the car, so her secrets. And then I had a cousin that lived with us that was kind of like a sister, kind of like a cousin. Turned out we weren't related at all. My mom was just best friends with her mom, and she couldn't raise her own kid, and so sometimes she stayed with us. Well, she used to talk about my mother sexually molesting her, and I used to scoff. And I'm like, yeah, women don't do that. And what's the point? And what's the word? I've since learned that there's a lot of point, and women do that. Women do that in prison. Women do that, and there's a lot of women that do that. And the way that women narcissists work, and we'll talk about that kind of in another video, but how it's covert instead of the way that men do it. And you just can't think about, like the emotional abuse that my mom put on me that became my operating system. First of all, how are you going to, you don't really remove kids from home necessarily when they're being emotionally tormented, because you don't know and you can't prove it, right? And if mothers are sexually assaulting their children, first of all, it's a big enough threshold for people to even believe that the guys do it. And they're just now like going, okay, well, I guess men do it sometimes. And in some places they go to prison, and some places they, come to the family dinner. Like, I think I told you in other videos, my family in Shelby, Montana, inviting the family molester to dinner. I call them out. I say, why are you guys doing that? Well, no, that right there with their victims, it's sick. And it's not something that I wish to partake in. So I always knew that of my different sexual assaults, but I couldn't really remember things enough to confront certain people. Now, my uncle that molested his children, I don't remember ever being left alone with him. So my mom, I think, deliberately knew and would keep me away from him. But I'm really big on these videos out there now that are consent. I always ask a child, or I go, can I hug you? And I first make sure they're okay with the parents, and, or if I shake their hand, oh, can I, I don't touch a child, and my mom would make me hug my uncle goodbye. And I would just cringe, and it would gross me out. And I hated him. And she'd make me hug him goodbye, or if he got me a gift, oh, say thank you, I didn't want to, right? Children know. And they're telling the truth. And so they know if this happened to them, right? So my mom, right, so she would do that. And then I would get, it's funny because now looking back, the way I felt about my uncle, I felt about my mom progressively. Like I didn't want to touch her. I didn't want her touching me. I didn't want her swooning over me, which she did all the time, Oh, your hair looks so good today. It was so lovely. And I remember when I first cut my hair short, that was a weird story. Like my dad didn't speak to me for a year. Like I was like 12 the first time I did it. So then after that, I let it grow because, my dad was my dad. But then I forgot what I was going to say. So back to, right. Remembering that my mother, I'd start to pull away from her. Oh, that when I was in high school. So when I did finally cut my hair, she was very critical of me. And, like it's a lesbian thing, like it's a, just, narcissistically critical. We'll just leave it at that for now. The actual narcissistic attributes I'll bring in another video. But 3 months passed or so, and she cut her hair the exact same way. I see her in public. Sometimes she wouldn't hug me in the street, just like in that movie Desert Hearts. She didn't hug me in the street because she said she didn't want people to think that she was a lesbian. I'm her fucking daughter. She didn't treat me like her daughter. And in looking back, she treated me like I was her husband. Like I was her partner. She put all of her emotional garbage on me all the time. I picked everything up for her, like in her life emotionally, picked up messes that she made, made sure that she was okay, and kept doing that. And, she just touched me whenever she wanted in whatever intimate way, touch my face, get near me. And I'd just be, and I didn't realize that it wasn't normal, that it wasn't, I thought, it's just a teenage thing, or it's a child thing, or you're like, you don't want your mom to whatever. But a lot of kids, you learn that over your life, I'm 54 now, like that when their mom touches them, hugs them, there's something wrong. And my mother's friends asked me a couple times if my stepfather was molesting me because of the way I was acting. And I don't recall that. And in looking back, how horrified would they have been, for me to say, well, my mother's molesting me. Right. So, well, how does that look? Right. Because people think of men and certain gratification, like what did my mother do to me? Right. And I would fought with my, like I said, the cousin, the one that I was raised with, of like, my mom didn't do that to you. And that's weird. That didn't happen. And then I'd go to different psychics and go to different spiritual layers and different counseling things. And I would bring up different things that would be pretty clear that my mother was sexually inappropriate with me. And, and I was around sexual conversations all the time. And, my mother was highly sexual. I know they used to watch porn and stuff, and I could hear sometimes when I was out, like I'd sleep out in the yard sometimes, or I could hear the windows open. I could hear her yelling different things while they were watching whatever, and going, oh my God. And the whole, it was things that I thought was normal, people weren't doing in other houses, right? So all of the fighting and effing and then all the, sexual jokes and sexual stuff all the time. And, just physical stuff too, like, oh, hey buddy, like to say hi, you'd punch someone in the shoulder. And I grew up doing that same thing, and people would be like, well, what is that? And when I got in one of my long-term relationships, she was stunned. I mean, we went over and painted my mother's house and the mother and dad's house. They fought and screamed the whole time. And she just watched me like it didn't faze me a bit, right? She was bothered by it, but I'm like, well, this is their love language, whatever. And then just be shocked that my family, my extended family, my mother's sister's kids, like people, we just all fight like hell, like say the cruelest, horrible things to each other, sexual jokes, sexualizing everything. And then the next day, just sit down and be fine with each other. We didn't hold a grudge. We just, would just be cruel and sarcastic and messed up with each other and overly sexual. And sometimes the cousins were being sexual and then it was just like, that's just whatever, resilient. And she's like, I don't get it. Like when that stuff happens, like she needed recovery time, or whatever. And two, like when we would fight, she would be like, I would wake up and be like, okay, well, I'm over it. I'm ready to just move on, whatever. I don't even need to talk about it. Didn't need to worry about it. But she would need to talk about it. Not talk. I was the talker. I'm not implying at all that she's like, let's talk about this and figure it out. That never happened. I'm that person. What I mean is that, whoa, like, how did that, and sometimes I used to refer to it, well, maybe it's like a blackout drunk. I didn't drink. I've never been a drinker. But emotionally, I'd be like, I don't remember. Like, I don't remember why I was upset. I don't care why I was upset. I'm over it. If the new day is here, it doesn't, this is, whether it's a survival mechanism or whatever it is. But after I moved from my parents' house, I went into 3 long-term relationships that took the next 30 years. Right? So a 12 and a 16, 28 years. And just did the same thing. Right? And had an authority figure and had a woman that was older than me and that had the credit and that paid the bills and that, no matter, when looking back going, well, no, I was the one that brought the money in. I was the one that made the money. She just manipulated me into thinking that she was the breadwinner when I was making money with her money for her and my name was never on anything. It was control and controlling me. And I didn't know that I could leave. I had no clue I could leave. I didn't have no credit, didn't realize that I'm the one that has the real estate company. I'm the one making the money. I'm the one that's using your money to make even bigger money. And I'm made out to be the dumb one, that I don't have a bachelor's in accounting. I don't have the, I wasn't born here and there, and I didn't do the, like she's always better than me. And she makes the rules in my house. Like, I mean, like I couldn't even lay on the bed and put my head up against the wall because she said get a grease spot on the wall, because she was raised by a violent stepmother. So her stuff's her stuff, but I then made it my stuff. So why does this transfer? Well, it all goes back to the mother wound, right? And like I said, I've explored this in my life, I thought, but I've never really looked at it like I'm looking at it now and going, yes, my mother was a narcissist. My mother was sexually abused and she sexually abuses. My mother is inappropriate with children, and including like biblically. I don't mean that sexually. I meant the other part sexually, but like the actual Bible. Like I remember when I was there, just before she split up with my dad, who's died now, my cousin was up and her 6-year-old daughter was at the table, and my cousin went to the store just for like, just a quick trip to the store. My mom got the Bible out and was trying to push, the Jehovah's Witness stuff on the child. And I just thought it was really weird. And when I'd go and visit her, I mean, you can say, well, yeah, she's good with children, she likes children, but to me, it just was always creepy. Okay. And I don't care if my mother sees this or not. I've never really fully went into, yes, my mother was sexually inappropriate with me. I have weird sexual and relationship and abusive stuff that my mother put on me. Now, it's not why I'm a lesbian. In high school, I thought I was bisexual. I mean, I dated men in high school, like a couple, one in particular that I would have had kids with, and that would have been my life. But the thing is he was too nice to me, and I needed chaos. And the not love felt like love, and the love and the attraction and the fun and being with someone who, I had fun with him. We had fun fishing in the dark, and I asked him out. I called one of his friends and asked him out. I loved everything about him, and he was really gentle with me and everything, and I picked chaos. So I think back then I was bisexual, and on and off I've thought about, but so I'm not a lesbian because of my mommy issues. I'm a lesbian because, I'm attracted to women and it's my thing. But at the same time, that presents a challenge of shutting off, right? And being the big daddy energy, being like, well, not like a Stone Butch sort of deal, like where they really just shut down, but where, the Butch femme cliches, if you're in that world, that like, the Butches are usually more emotional, and the femmes are stronger. It's just an illusion, right? They say Butch in the streets and femme in the sheets or something like that. And that, Butch women are highly emotional and whatever. But I just wouldn't let love that was nice and sweet and kind from a man or a woman was not my kink. It wasn't what turned me on. It wasn't what I wanted. It wasn't what I seen as love. If there wasn't chaos or fighting or rejecting me or treating me bad or ordering me around, or the things that were in my relationships, I didn't know that it was in relationship. And even now, like the last decade, of being connected to someone and not seeing it as an in love thing, seeing it as beautiful in a lot of ways, but not feeling it in my heart, unable to feel what was clearly, logically, obviously, consistently every fucking day for 10 years. Good to me, kind to me, supportive of me, didn't let me freeze to death in a car, didn't ever leave me alone, didn't ever not listen to me, didn't ever not be there for me, didn't ever stand up for me in every way and in every corner. And I did not ever see that as love as like in love or something that I would want or could have in an intimate relationship because I am shut down. And when you break your heart open, you have the capacity to love more, right? But the thing is that this time, in looking at the narcissistic stuff, I looked at it in a lot as far as myself being a narcissist and going, okay, what do I got to fix in me? What do I got to do to be a better and better me? But I never really looked at it, even though people told me, like in my really long-term relationship, how she was treating me was abusive. I didn't see it. I saw her as taking care of me and buying me things and providing me a home and being the big provider. And the fact that I wasn't touched, held, we didn't sleep together, we didn't drive around in the woods together, I didn't have friends over. I completely changed everything about my life to be with her, and I didn't even fucking notice it. 16 years. Before I met her, I had friends that would pop over. I'd have fun. I'd go out and do things with friends. I go to the woods with friends. I go to the beach with friends, go fishing, go mud bogging, go whatever. But when she came into the picture and didn't want people just popping over, I couldn't have people just popping over, but she didn't play with me either. So I was dead. I used to say, I gave my age, my something, and my boobs to her because, by the time we were done, I was an old lady. And so you go, well, why bother now, right? Like, am I at the end of my life? I don't know. I met a 90-year-old man today at this, anyway. So I probably got a ways to go. So I think it's beneficial for me and for you to really look at what your operating system is for love, and to go ahead and say, yeah, so-and-so was sexually inappropriate with me. But when your mother is sexually inappropriate with you, added to having to keep her alive, added to having to find things for her, and constant fits and constant fights and constant things breaking and constantly picking things up, which I ended up reenacting with my sister in 2018 because my stepdad had a daughter. And so she was my stepsister. We weren't blood. And I went to see her in 2018 and she did that. Just broke things and threw fits and just out of her mind when she would get ticked off. And I just go, whoa, right? And I'm old lady by then, right? So 48 or whatever. And she broke something and I got on the floor. Actually, I'd seen her a few years before and she did that too. And there was a puppy in the house and she was mad about something. Well, she was mad at her boyfriend because he didn't come over and do exactly what she wanted. So she had this jar next to her and she threw it and broke the jar, and it was full of candy. And the dog come over and was eating it all. So I got on the floor and picked it all up. And I was like, well, yes, it's a reenactment of my childhood. And I don't necessarily have to do that. But I didn't want the dog to eat glass. And I didn't want the dog to eat the candy. So I did it for the dog. Otherwise, I'd have been like, you need to clean that mess up yourself, right? And then, like I said, I went back 4 years later, she did it again. And we're no contact either. Like, I'm not doing any of this with anybody. And if any of you come across this video, like, I don't want no fucking contact with you. Like, you are gone. You've already crossed over. You're not going to change. I don't want you in my life. I am headed into my 55th year, and I'm finally starting to address what it is that keeps me from love and feeling good, that keeps me in fight or flight, and it's you. So stay the fuck away from me. Okay? I'm not doing this video to get or give forgiveness. I'm doing this video because I have seen so many videos of people sharing stuff that have healed me, that I'm doing this video to share my healing process so that someone else, someday, somewhere, it will help you to face your stuff. what we're doing right now is becoming self-aware, right? I can't become self-aware if I'm not willing to admit just how abusive my mother was to me and how that affects me and my ability to let in people in my life that are nice to me, that are kind to me. I haven't lived with anyone in 12 years. I had a relationship for most of the last 10 years, long distance. We didn't live together. And, you know, if we did, this stuff would have come up. We probably wouldn't be friends now if we did live together, because I've been working on this stuff my whole life. And I worked on every trigger and every trauma, and I have cleared so much and so much and so much. But now, as we're in New Earth, and we can't go to this next level without really self-awareness. And I can't be self-aware if I don't face and look at what my mother did to me so I can let it go. I can't say, I'm not a victim, I am not a victim, I am not a victim, I created my reality, if I don't first own what happened. And I can't own what happened if I don't look at it and say, yes, that happened. Yes, no matter what my mother tells all of her Jehovah's Witness friends and all of her family that has control over her life and all this last decades of everything she's been with the Jehovah's Witness Church and her new people, she was not good to me. And yeah, forgive people. Let them, don't suffer for everything they've done in their childhood once they've changed, but she never changed. And last time I was over there, right? I know it's weird. It seems petty, but there was this kid, her best friend's son, and he was just, I don't know, he was just a kid, right? He's just some kid. And my mom and his mom were best friends. And his mom was killed in a logging accident. And fast forward, I don't know, 15 years or something. He's a man, but he's a man that's way younger than me. I go to visit my mom in her house, where I bought her TV, I bought her couches, I bought her toasters, I bought her bed, everything in the house. I've got her. She's got my 4-wheeler. I'm an old lady, right? 2016, I'm 46, right? Compared to this whippersnapper. But he's a man now. And in Jehovah's Witness Church, he's now an elder, and he's a man. So him and his wife get her bed. She gets my couch, and I get the floor. And it's cool. But fucked up at the same time, right? Absolutely never respected me, never looked at me as an equal, never liked me, and I never got it. Why? Why didn't she like me? Why was she cold with me? Why was she always jealous of me? And why did she criticize me about my hair or whatever I did and then do it herself? I'd color my hair auburn, and then she'd go to the same hairdresser who was related to us, and she'd get the same color while slamming me for getting my hair dyed. It was this constant jealousy and energy, and something just popped into my head. It's a cliche from a movie. I mean, it happened, but so my mother fell in love with my biological father. They were 18, 19. So they were like 19, okay, because she was 20 when I was born. He was the love of her life. She was madly in love with him. My mom was very promiscuous with a lot of people before that, but she was in love with this guy. And wanted to be with him forever. So my story that I felt was real is that she'd rode the train back over the mountains, like a 4-hour thing, and I was in the womb, and I felt all this, and it's funny because when I went back to Montana in 2016 and asked my biological family more questions of, it turned out my grandma on my mom's side went over there and got her after she was pregnant and took her back over the mountains. So Mariah Pass, this would be eastern Montana, western Montana sort of thing. And I was like, you can't be there, you can't this. And then his mom didn't think my mom was good enough, right? She's and they're all multi-generational witches, and I was the first grandkid, big family, like eastern Montana. When my grandfather died, I had over 1,000 cousins, like huge family, like, right. So, and I was the first grandkid. So, and they're like, you know, we're family's so big that all these things like really matter. Of like, it doesn't matter what family does, we stick together. Like, you know. Anyway, so I was little baby Crystal, and I was born Crystal Valcour because that was my grandma's name, and my mom was adopted as a Valcour. So even though that was on all my prescription bottles when I was young, I didn't get that was my name. My dad adopted me. My stepdad adopted me at age 11 or 12, and then I took the name Cox. And but my biological name, my family name, is Clark, which is interesting because I'm related to Meriwether Lewis, of Lewis and Clark, but the Lewis. Anyway, so little baby Crystal's born, and there was a death in the family on my biological father's. His grandfather had died, and my mom was close to him, so they all was going over to the funeral. Well, I don't know if you're familiar with Mariah's Pass, but wow. So bunch of snow, they couldn't get over the pass. And that was it. That was my whole life in that moment of the fate of where I would be, where I would grow up. Now, if you're familiar with Montana, eastern Montana and northwest Montana, completely different planets, completely different realities. You know, hunting, fishing, mountains, lakes, whatever, where I grew up. But eastern Montana, wheat fields, you know, no trees, just, you know, rattlesnakes and big sky. And, you know, I don't like it over there. And so because my mom couldn't get over the pass, she got over the pass and went to the funeral. She'd probably married my father and stayed there. But she couldn't get over the pass. And so then by that time, then she met my stepdad. And they started dating and stuff. And then they told my biological father held me once as a baby. I had an issue with men right from being born. Like men's voices, I would just start screaming and wailing, and was always just kind of afraid of men. It was kind of a weird thing. And so he held me once, and then my grandparents, you know, everybody watched me my whole life. I didn't know. I didn't meet him till I was 21. And so my mother and my stepfather had threatened them and told them that they needed to stay away from me. So he was never on any birth certificates. He was never, you know. And my grandparents, when I was growing up in Rexford, my grandparents owned the Bullpen Bar, if you're familiar with the area. And it burnt down twice. Lots of weird, freaky things happened. And I never knew they were my grandparents. So they moved away, and I'd met them when I was 21. And then I was never really close to any of them. And I had a brother and sister, never met. I'd seen them. I didn't know who, you know, I didn't know they were. I did see my father and know he was my father when I was 12. I'll tell you that story another day, but actually I'll tell you that story now. Okay, so when I was 12, I was best friends with this girl. And let's call her Jane. So Jane and I were besties, and I thought she was pretty darn cute. I liked her. She was just so precocious and so like, I'm not taking any shit. And she rode horses and I rode motorcycles, and we went swimming all the time, and we were just really close. And turned out she was my cousin, but I didn't know. Okay, so we're at the beach. My mom's sitting there with her friends on the blanket. I remember them all sitting there. There's probably like 4 other women and my mom. They're just all gossiping and whatever. And it's a blanket, and it's over like by the, up against this little hill. And then there's some plants and stuff. I'm out in the water with my friend, and I see this guy. It was just a little hill, and he's just kind of laying back on the hill in his jeans, and I can still see it now. And he's sitting next to this woman. And like I said, I'm in the water. I forget the name I just said my friend's name was. Pretend her name is Jane. Okay, Jane. Let's call her Jane. Because I don't need to be out on everybody. I was in the water, and I looked over at the man, and I felt something. Like I don't remember what I felt, but I know that a curiosity came up in me, and I wanted to know who he was. I don't know if it was the way he was looking at us. I don't know. It was an energy I felt. I mean, now knowing that I'm a psychic and a 5th generation witch, and the whole family psychics, and it was probably some sort of connection that way. But I went up and I asked my mom, I said, Mom, who's that guy over there? And I wrote an essay about this in college, and about how everybody just went, uh, everybody froze. All of my mother's friends, everybody just froze. And so my mom said, go ask Jane. So my bestie, that was a year younger than me, I was about 12, so she's about 11, right? Go ask her. So I went back down to the water. I got in the water there, and I said, oh, hey, Jane, who's that guy up there? And she said, oh, that's Carl. That's your father. And I went, oh. Okay. So my fucking crazy mother didn't want to tell me that, right? So I don't know what happened next in between all of this. But next thing I knew, my mom's holding my hand, and we left. And we walked right by him. Right by him. Like within feet. Didn't say a word. Nobody said a word. You know. And when I did meet my brother and sister, I was pretty butthurt at the fact that they kept us away. Because we weren't close. We're not close now. I tried. I just don't feel it. And now I know I just don't feel much, right? So, like in the way of interpersonal relationships, like just to really go, okay, well, letting people in that I'm going to have fun with, and I'm not going to always feel like a fight or flight or whatever. Anyway, so yeah, that's when I first saw the guy. My friend told me that turned out to be my cousin. That was her uncle. And oh, okay, well, good to know. Thank you very much. And then 10 more years passed, and then I called him up. Or I wrote him a letter to meet him, and then we met. Weird stuff there. Long stories there, but it does feel good to admit this stuff to myself, and just to kind of put it out there of like, I want it gone. And I prayed to Spirit, I feel like, for decades. Whatever that root pain is that my mom put on me, of like, I'm responsible for her. So I'm responsible for the feelings of women around me. So, if you're into me, it's like, okay, then all of a sudden I'm responsible for you. Everything I say is a reflection of you. I'm going to get in trouble because you don't like what I say or what I wear. And even if what I say is nothing to do with you, you don't like what I say about people in the room. You don't like what I say about worldviews. You don't like what I say about certain foods, and I have to shut up, and I get in trouble, and I get shamed, and I get guilted, and I would just go with it and then just shut down. For what? The reward of what? The approval of this woman that wants to be with me? So I'm going to alter my life. And I did that in a long-term relationship. So I did it, for 16 years, at least 10 years of it. I just shut down. I'm like, okay, well, you're uncomfortable with people coming over. They don't need to come over. You're uncomfortable if I say this or that. I won't say that or anymore. You're uncomfortable if I wear this or that, so I won't wear it anymore. And then eventually, just leading a secret double life. And, make sure she's okay and lead my own life. Had my own room, had my own, my own TV, my own. We lived in the same house. We'd get dinner and go to our separate areas. And instead of moving on and having passion and love, which eventually I did, but by then I was already fucking dead. I had a car at 16. I always loved to drive in the woods. I always drove, right? But I got with this woman, and then she's the dom, and it's her money, and it's her vehicle, and she drove everywhere. And I just got used to that. I don't know how I lived through it. I would get so upset emotionally when we'd be going down the highway 70 miles an hour, headed to go get groceries or whatever in the neighboring town, Flathead Valley or whatever. And I'd try to jump out of the truck. And I did it many times. It's interesting because I went to Dallas, Texas a few years ago. And I was at a hotel. And I walked up to the counter. And the woman said, oh, I had a friend named Crystal. And I could see, like in a sci-fi movie, my head tilt, and I went, and then I just brought this message through to her, and she just started crying because her friend had died just that way. She couldn't handle the stuff her boyfriend was spewing at her. She opened the car door and she jumped out, and she died going down the highway like 60 miles an hour. Now, I did that 3 or 4 times, and she grabbed me and she pulled me over, because jumping out of that car, whatever I could do to get away from her, because she was not understanding me. We did not speak the same language. She infuriated me. I infuriated her. It was so emotionally unavailable. It was so like hell. But then we go out and have these great meals, and then we'll buy a new truck, and then we'll just spend some money, and then everything's going to be great, right? Well, I was dying and wanted to be dead and miserable, and had no fucking clue that I could just leave. You'd think I would. You'd think it'd be like, pack my bags, I got my own car, I'm out of here. But, I had my own car. But then, she didn't like it. So I had at that point when we met, I had a 1970 Pontiac Le Mans, right? Because I was really into those old cars. And she didn't like that. So she bought me a new vehicle and put both our names on it. And now looking back, more and more things, I was just trapped, right? Then I didn't have any credit. I didn't have what I create, electric accounts, credit cards, and like I said, there was no such thing as gay marriage. And there you go. And time just piled on until I did the anti-corruption stuff, and God spoke to me, and I had a vision, and I moved into that, and I saw what I needed to do and kept doing that. And that, kind of freaked her out. And then I left, and then I went to, I left for 3 months. I come back for a month, and then we just fought like hell, nearly killed each other, like physically, shaking each other, and like she'd foam at the mouth, and I'm like, we're gonna like kill each other. We're gonna get into this energy of where, I just couldn't. I had this pain body building up of where I was so frustrated because she couldn't hear me, and so. And no way out, because everything's in her name. So I just kind of kept escaping, like 3 months, and then 6 months. And then, I lived with her, and then I'd call the voicemail at the house and leave a message and just beg her to let me go. And she'd be like, well, just go. And then I had a real estate sale, and, I got like a $25,000 commission. I gave her $20,000 for the bills to keep the house going for another year. And then I took $5,000 and went to, Hawaii. And I rented a place, and I was going to stay there. But then I come back and I try to work on it again, and the money's gone that paid the year up. And then she ended up losing the house. And the year she ended up losing the house, I made $80,000. I was making $80,000 a year. And, I was doing investigative blogging for a big company, and my name wasn't on anything. So I couldn't get a loan to save the house, and we lost it all. And I'm talking about all this because I need to face the reason that I can't feel love from someone that's nice to me. And why I want to please strangers. Why I want to be like, why self-conscious, or why you can sit down next to someone and they go, well, you shouldn't be talking like that, or you shouldn't say that. And where they feel like it's a reflection of them. It's like my mom did, right? Or I saw this video the other day, and this woman said she was talking to this older gal, and the older gal was talking about her son, some positive things. Well, the son come over and shushed her because he was embarrassed. And the woman's like, she was talking to, said, well, I'm okay, we're fine. And he kept trying to shush his mom. And she was talking in the video about how the patriarch's alive and well, and being men doing this, right? Women do it too. And how her sons, her teenage sons, would criticize her for what she wears, like that's inappropriate. Oh, if she talk about maybe her spiritual beliefs or her hobbies or any of her interests, they'd be like, oh, you need to, you shouldn't talk like that. Or, people can hear you. You're going to embarrass us. You're going to make us look bad. And then she'd be like, because they learned it from their father. Well, because she let the father do it because it was the father and he's the big boss of the family, whatever. But she told her son, she's like, look, I can say what I want and I can face the repercussions of what I say. So they learned that, right? And women do this too, that if I'm sitting next to you, or if you're my mom, or if I'm related to you, then whatever you wear, whatever you say, whatever you do reflects on me and triggers my guilt and shame body. So you have to behave in a way that I feel good about and doesn't trigger me, so I'm okay. And that's keeping the patriarch alive and well. Now, if you're sitting there and you're criticizing someone and telling them, oh my gosh, you're this and you're that, directly at them, and they're like, well, that's upsetting, or that's not this, or that's not, which spiritually you should just more like be, well, I don't prefer to be around people that treat me that way, and you just don't. But if you're sitting there not talking directly about the person, you're talking about something in your own life, something in the world, some world event, something in the room, some decoration, something, nothing to do with them. And they get triggered and they get embarrassed and their guilt and shame triggers. And then they get upset and then they blame you because they were triggered. Now, I have no way of knowing what someone I'm sitting next to, say in the case of this story, like I have no way of knowing what's going to upset my mom, or especially if I haven't been around her like in a decade. So I don't have a book that says if I talk about apples, you're going to trigger and go, oh my God, that's embarrassing. Or if I talk about this topic or that topic, like which topics are off limit? Can I talk about my clothes? Can I talk about my hair? Can I talk about my teeth? Can I talk about decorations in the room? Can I talk about, what am I allowed to talk about and what am I not? I have no way of knowing. But if I talk about the wrong thing and she's like, oh my God, you don't, you're just horrible. You're rude. You're disrespectful. You're upsetting me. Obviously she's triggered by something I said, but how do I know what are her triggers? You're responsible for your own triggers. You're responsible for your own traumas. And when you project them on others constantly, that's not being self-aware. And so in this exercise and in videos I'm going to do about narcissism, I want to be self-aware. I want to be self-aware of what my mother did to me, how that is my operating system, and how I can look at love being love. And when someone's kind to me, being kind to me, instead of going, oh my God, you're abusive to me, that makes me be in love with you. Oh my God, you're trying to control me, that's love. You want me to do what? In what order? And you want me to, go do this or go do that? Okay, I'll do it, whatever you want, because that's love, right? But never them doing for me. When I have someone in my life that's constantly reciprocating real love and reciprocating intelligence and ideas and is always there for me and me there for them and have an equal relationship, that's not love. When it's one-sided and someone just wants something from me and then controls me, but I'm going to withhold love, I'm going to withhold kisses, I'm going to withhold touch, I'm going to withhold money, I'm going to withhold, your vehicle or whatever they're going to withhold, then I want to please them because I love them so much. Instead of looking at it going, yeah, but what are they doing to please me? Like, what am I getting out of it? Oh no, I don't need to get nothing. Fact that they want something from me, oh my gosh, and that they want to control me and they care about everything I say and they want to monitor me and censor everything I say and everything I wear, that's love. Well, that comes from narcissistic parents. That comes from narcissistic abuse. And when you're an only child and a girl and your mother, it really put a huge emotional load on me that I have never got over. Oh, I've done healing work for decades and decades. Every trigger, every trauma, different kinds of healers, different kind of therapists, counselors, whatever. They can't get to the bottom of it, right? I've got to layer and layer and layer and layer. And some things they're like, well, it's just a lifetime thing and it's this and that. And then you get PTSD and then you got bipolar and then you got this and then you got all this and it's just forever. But the thing is that you can get to some of the root of some stuff and heal. And I have layer after layer of abuse. Like, I don't engage in physical domestic violence stuff. I don't engage in, I don't fight. I'm like, get with someone and fight and rage, and no, I don't want to be around it. Someone's not interested in me or they're treating me bad. Nope, not going to be around them anymore. Don't do any of that. I've worked a lot on, self-defeating, sabotage, criticizing myself, and I've healed a ton and come out of tons of different layers and levels of dark nights of the soul and depression, and just really, but this one, I need to get to the bottom of this, and in an effort to get rid of the fight or flight, the constant background anxiety, the constant fear. I need to face some of the stuff of where the beginning is. And the first thing to do by that is admitting that my mother was a narcissist. My mother is a narcissist. My mother has to have every single thing her way. She needs to have attention. She needs to win every board game and be in control. She has secrets that she cannot bear. And she just hides them in the, well, I give it all to Jehovah now. Okay, great. But then still be, like, it's weird. Now that decades have passed and I have spiritually counseled and done healing work with thousands and thousands of people, now I see that it's not normal. My mother being jealous of me, my mother blocking me out, my mother treating me more like I was her lover or her husband than her daughter. I mean, she had a messed up relationship with me. And I had a good childhood in my freedom of being on the beach, being on my motorcycle, being alone, going and hanging out in the woods and stuff. But I had a highly volatile domestic violence, abusive childhood. And my mother was emotionally abusive and tormenting to me every single fucking day. I was on edge of fight or flight every single minute of every single fucking day, trying to read what her mood was so I would know if I was okay. And I've spent decades doing that with women that I've been in relationships with or strangers. Reading their mood. I can see someone in the store, a woman like might break a nail or just they don't have her favorite something and she's disappointed. And I feel triggered. And I feel fight or flight because I see that she's upset about something and I feel responsible. That is all rooted in my mother's treatment of me. And every technique and every counseling and every healing session I've done has never addressed this. And the reason Spirit said that I've never been able to address it, because first of all, I never admitted it. How could she do that? I cannot admit it. And I'm admitting it now. She did do that. She was sexually inappropriate with me. She was emotionally abusive to me. She put me in fight or flight fear every single day. And on top of that, if I didn't make her okay, she's going to kill herself. And I'm looking at it. God, I'm looking right at it. Please take it away. I'm done. I acknowledge my spiritual contract. I appreciate the lessons it showed me. Please take it away now. I'm done. I want to feel love. I don't want to just please women who are constantly triggered or constantly need validation. Or women that are like, everything you say is a reflection of me, and I'm going to get mad at you, and you're going to get in trouble, and something bad's going to happen, and I'm going to withhold love, and I'm going to be this, and I'm going to be that. If you don't wear what I want you to wear, say what I want you to say, shut up when I want you to shut up. And I don't want to do that anymore. And every time I'm tested on that, someone new comes into my life, I had do some aspect of that. I damn well know now that I can trust myself. I've learned that. And over the last year, I have had 5 women hit on me, and I have had interactions with them to certain levels to see that I can trust myself. I'm not going to move in with a woman who's going to emotionally abuse me. But at the same time, that's that's a good thing, but it still affects me. I still want women that do that. And I don't want to want women that do that. And I don't want to want women, I don't want to mourn exes. I don't want to mourn anything in my life where women have done that. I don't want to be like, oh, I miss you because of all of the good. What the fuck? I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to have anything in my energy field that draws women to me that will treat me like my mother treated me. I want that gone. And Spirit told me the first step to getting that gone is to acknowledge that it exists. I thought I had. I thought I'd looked at it. And every time I've broached the idea with different therapists or mental health counselors or psychics that my mother sexually abused me, I said, abso-fucking-lutely not. That is ludicrous. Well, however you want to look at it, it's clear that there was some sort of sexual abuse that my mother did, and that she knew that others did. And the emotional control and the anger and keeping her alive and never knowing when she's going to break shit or, you know, be hit my dad or throw stuff or scream at me and hurt my ears and tell me she's not screaming. I never knew. And so I have never liked the Jack in the Box, right? Because I never know when it's going to pop up. I never keep my phone on because I can't stand it just randomly ringing whenever it wants. And I'm looking at it head on, and I'm hoping to clear it. And so we're going to talk about it more. And this one is just the confession. This is me admitting that, yes, that's who my mother was, and that is the abuse that I have allowed to continue in my adult life by strangers. Women I've been in relationship with. Women that just go, hey, I think you're cute. Let's run off together for a while or whatever. Okay. Then you can emotionally abuse me and I'll just stay and hang out. I don't do that anymore. I don't stay. But I still attract it. And I don't want to. So, there's that. I love you. And we'll talk about this more soon. Bye for now.